All right, guys, welcome to section 5. You're almost done with this workshop, and yet there's still so much to talk about and so much to do, and so we're just gonna dive in there with it, this section. We're gonna be talking about camera audio, microphones, things like that, a way to bring audio into your final film. A lot of information there. We're gonna talk about actors in this scene and how to direct actors, how to talk about the film with actors so they catch the right vision. We're gonna talk about blocking, things like that. Scene motivation, we're gonna talk about the language that you use on set. Believe it or not, there is custom language that happens on set to keep everybody on the same page. And so we're gonna talk about those things so you can kind of put those things in your vocabulary and use them well. And so all of this we gotta talk about, so let's just dive in there. And we're gonna begin by talking about audio on set. Now, we talked a lot about the kinds of audio equipment at the beginning of this workshop, but now we're gonna look at the individual elements, components, and figure out the best ways to use them on set. So the first line of audio on any given set is gonna be the on-camera audio. I mean, almost all cameras have a microphone on them. They might not be the best microphones, but they do work, and you can use them depending on the kind of camera you have. But before you do that, let's really talk about some ways to use camera audio to your advantage. Because they're weak microphones, the number one rule with on-camera audio is to get that camera as close as you can to the subject. So while you might want to put the camera way over there, away from your actors and film a big wide shot, camera mics just are not gonna do very well picking that kind of stuff up. So when you are using the camera so when you're using the camera microphone, you wanna get the camera as close to your subject as you can. So a great strategy for this is, let's pretend you have a scene and you got a couple people talking, and they're here and they're here. Now you could just shoot this really simple, you get a wide shot, put the camera way over here and film them as, profiles as they're talking. But the problem is if you do that, your camera mic is gonna be really, it's just not gonna be very good. It's gonna get a lot of ambient noise, a lot of air noise, and it's just not gonna sound good. So a better approach for this, if you're using your camera, is to try to shoot it in a two-shot. Shoot one shot where you put the camera right here, kind of in front of the person, and you film just that person. And get the camera as close to the person as they can. That way, when they're talking on the scene, they're talking in the direction of the camera so that their voice will be as strong as possible for the scene. And then when you need to shoot the other person, you just flip the camera around and shoot the scene from the other side. Then when you go into editing, you put the whole scene together using the two different shots. This is probably the best way to use camera audio. So if you have to do that, just remember when you're making your film, your camera's gonna have to be as close to the subjects as possible in every single shot because you just can't move it away. We've already talked about how audio is so important in the film, how audio makes such a big difference. So here, really work it into your script, work the camera, get it as close as you can to the subject. Every chance you can do it. I cannot stress it enough, get it close. So if that's your only option, that should be your strategy as far as on-camera audio goes. Okay, so those are your best options for on-camera audio, but now let's get away from the camera and look at your other options. There's several and you can use them in different ways. We talked about this one in the first section, technically all of them in the first section, but let's talk a little bit about lavaliers. First of all, if you can get one of these, they're fantastic. They're wireless, which makes them really convenient. They can be a little bit pricey, so you might not be able to buy one, but a lot of times churches will have some of these, and sometimes they're nice enough to let you borrow them if you need one. So a couple things to consider when you're using a lavalier mic is where to clip them or hide them. Because depending on where you put them, the sound can be different. And so if you were to clip the lavalier to somebody right around the mid-chest, it's probably the best place to put them, but the chest tends to resonate a lot more when someone talks. So if you clip the lavalier here, you're gonna get a lot more bass tones, you're gonna get a lot more resonance, it's gonna sound really full and warm as the person's talking. However, if you take the lavalier and you clip it really high, it's gonna have less of those bass tones, it's not gonna be quite as warm, but maybe that's what you're looking for, and so maybe you put it here instead. Whatever you do, the really important thing is that you clip it consistently to the same spot. Don't start here and then later on clip it here, because then when you try to mix the audio together, one's gonna sound really warm and one's gonna sound really not so warm. And you're gonna be like, well, how'd that happen? Well, it's because you moved the mic. So when you're using a lavalier, the most important thing is just be consistent about where you put it. A couple strategies for lavaliers are the same one as we mentioned here. If you only have one, then why don't you clip it on the first person and film the scene from that person's perspective, and then take it off of them, put it on the other person, and film them that way. And that way you have really good audio from both actors, and you can just cut it together in audio. If you're wanting to, in audio. You can cut it together in editing, not audio. Now, if you wanted to film the whole scene and the two people are talking, but you only had one lavalier, one thing that you could do is you can try to maybe put a table between them, hide the microphone behind a cup somehow, put it somewhere in the middle of the scene so that both the actors are talking across the microphone. That can work. Sometimes it can be really tricky, but you can definitely pull it off. So just get creative. These things are so small and easy to hide. You can put them up pretty much anywhere. So get creative, do what you can do, and that's the fun with a lavalier. Now, let's move on to, I think, the best thing for making basic films, and that's gonna be the shotgun microphone. They're so easy to use that they really are the best way to get great sound. You never have to worry about the sound from one of the lavaliers rubbing on some clothing or things like that, or you don't even have to worry so much about hiding it because really you just move the mic out of the scene. So if the mic is here, fantastic, but now if the mic is here, you can't see it and it works. So a shotgun is gonna be the best way to record on-set audio. They're just really convenient. Now, a couple things to consider though is one, shotgun microphones can be kind of pricey, and so you might not have access to it. And if that's the case, then oh well. But if you can access one or borrow one or buy one, then fantastic. You can find them on Amazon anywhere from $200 to thousands. So just be particular. And a couple things to think about. One, shotgun microphones usually have to have phantom power. And so a lot of the times they will have a battery that you can put in them and provide phantom power that way. If you're plugging it into an audio recorder, usually these audio recorders have phantom power that you can just click a button and turn the phantom power on. Or a lot of times if you're plugging the shotgun mic straight into your camera, a lot of cameras have phantom power as well. So just make sure if you're gonna go through the hassle of buying one and using one that you've already made sure you have some way to get phantom power because almost all of them are gonna need it. And then another thing to think about with shotgun microphones is where to point them. The natural thing to do is you think, oh, well, it's the long microphone. I want to just point it right at their face. But that is actually not the best way to get sound. The same thing that we talked about with lavaliers. The best sound comes from right around here in the person's chest. It will sound warmer and fuller and it resonates here. So even though my mouth is where the sound comes out, the actual overall tone comes from this part of your chest. So when you're using shotgun microphones and then you put them on a pole, don't aim them straight at the person's mouth. It's not gonna be the best result. The best result is gonna be aimed straight at their chest. It helps, it's a bigger target anyway, and your sound is gonna be warmer and more full that way. So in the case of these two people, if they were talking and you had to film this scene, you just put the microphone right above each of their heads, and as they're talking, you just take the mic, point it at the first person's chest, let them do their lines. Then move it over, aim it at the other person, and you can do the whole take by just moving the microphone back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So shotguns are really fantastic ways. They're easy to move. You can avoid a lot of problems by using on-camera audio or lavalier systems by having one of these. So we highly recommend it. If you can get one of these, fantastic. So keep all that in mind. And now that we've talked about audio, let's move on to talking about working with actors.